Halloween forever.
For those of you who tuned into the last episode where we talked about toys, I told a joke that at the top that vaguely was associated with toys, and I really had to stretch to make a comparison, and that's because I mixed up my jokes. So here's the joke that was supposed to be about toys. Okay, ready? Do you hear? Say, hey, Steve. Hey, how's it going, Steve? What's up?
Hey, what's up, Brian?
Hey, do you hear that about that brand new big Lego store that opened in Times Square? Did you hear about that? It's a big grand opening down there. Yeah, it was crazy. The shoppers were lined up for blocks.
Hey.
Welcome, boys and girls, to another fucking Minisode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Duplo.
You're the big clunky Legos. Yeah, last time we talked about toys, so that would have been a toy joke. And then this episode, we're talking about a movie that has cops in it. So then they get arrested. We tried the Energizer Bunny. That would have made more sense. But I got bad poo brains. I got whacked out poo brains. So
I think it worked for both. I think it worked for both.
Yeah, you know what? Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? This is a free podcast. But guys, this is going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a really unique kind of format for an episode. I'm really excited about it. We are going to talk about really two movies. One is a remake of the other one, and they're both by the same director. We're going to talk a little bit about Last Shift from 2014, and we're going to talk about Malum from 2023, both directed by Anthony Diblasi. So that should be really, really fun. But we got a whole bunch of other shit we got to do before that. So hold your fucking pants on, guys. First of all, we're coming up on that August Showdown episode. If you tuned in last week, you heard me talk about what our August Showdown topic is going to be. It is going to be good scenes in otherwise bad movies. So that should be a really fun Showdown topic. We haven't done anything like that. And if you're new to the show and you're saying, what the fuck is a Showdown, Bry? First of all, don't call me Bry. I don't appreciate that. You don't know me like that. You're fucking new.
Don't call me Steve.
Don't call him Steve. Don't call me Bry. It's fucking rude. Second of all, where the fuck you been? All right. So what we do is some fucking episode every damn Monday, some tasty content on the interwebs every damn Monday. But the first Monday of the month, we do a Showdown episode where we have a guest. We pick a topic. Actually, you help us pick a topic we got the big old spinny wheel of topics. We pick 3, throw it on the social media friends and listeners help us pick what that topic is going to be. And once we have it, we pick a movie or a scene or a show or whatever that topic demands that's associated with it. Then we get on that damn Showdown episode. We lace up them motherfucking boots, right? We grease up them muscles, right? We trim them fingernails and we start wheeling out the fucking goodies, right? The ladders, the steel chairs, all that shit. And we just fucking go at it. And then ultimately somebody is going to take home that fucking 1, 2, 3 shoulders on the mat. The fucking belt goes home with somebody. Right now, your boy got that belt. I've been just strutting around with it like one does. To the victor go the spoils, if you know what I mean. I just been getting flocked everywhere I go. Been signing autographs. Been charging $10 an autograph. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, guys, by the way, if you want to subscribe to our Patrons, it's patreon.com/Halloween is forever. We'll talk about that here in a damn sec. But for August, that strap of mine, going to be back on the line in August. It's my birthday in August. So I'm going to be fighting extra hard. I guess that has something to do with it. That's how it works. If you want to help us pick those Showdown topics, you want to send us some suggestions for minisodes or just fucking weird flicks or something like that you won't think we should watch. We get a lot of cool stuff from our listeners on the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the Twitters. And now we got one of them old, what's that thing called over there that the big Zuck threw out there?
The old thread.
Go the old thread. Apparently shit's lighting up. Shit be tight over there on the threads, I hear. Go check that out as well. We're on there. It's at Halloween is Forever, pretty much, on all that stuff. Or I guess if you want to send us an old-fashioned email, I don't really talk about that too often anymore. It's HalloweenIsForeverPod@gmail.com. You can send something over there as well. All right. Patreon. We got patrons. We have achieved patrons, which means our plan engaged. Steve, tell them about this stupid fucking plan that you put together that you're going to ruin my life with.
Patreon rules, and this is why we do Patreon, because I can ruin lives. So over on our Patreon, we have 2 tiers. We have the Scamps and we have the Rascals. And if you sign up for Scamps tier, that's $3, and it gets you all kinds of bonus things. You can add an extra vote when it's voting time. So if you feel like, hey, I didn't vote enough on Twitter and Instagram, you can vote again. And we'll have other things on there. We might have a little bit of bonus content here and there, and episodes will be ad free. That's for $3. That's okay. It's whatevs. Get on the Rascal tier. The Rascal tier, it gets you all that stuff. It gets you on the Discord so you can watch these episodes happen live. It gets you on the Discord to chat with us, or if we're doing watch alongs. And it most importantly, it gets you Family Is Forever.
I hate this about it. This is the thing I hate the most in my whole life.
But it's the best thing, because Family Is Forever is the brand new Patreon exclusive podcast where Brian and I will sit down and watch all of the Fast and the Furious movies.
50 fucking 8 of them, however many there are.
There's 58 now, but more can always be added, and we'll watch those too. But we're going to watch them all in sequence. And this is starting in July with the first one, the original Fast and the Furious, the OG. Jump on now, and you can be a part of this. You can be a part of it.
I hate this. I also want to reiterate that no amount of money is worth this. I am very skeptical of this whole idea, and I am considering instituting some sort of get out of jail card where if like I cut my own dick off, I don't have to watch any more of these movies. I don't know. I'm really expecting the worst. It might not be as bad as I think it's going to be, but the amount of bad I think it's going to be is a lot of bad. But we are going to ease into it with the first Fast and Furious movie. I have seen that before. I kind of know what to expect. But we shall see. We shall see, friends. So, yeah, go ahead and become a patron over there at patreon.com/HalloweenIsForever. Give us a couple of them just easy, smooth little paper monies. And then you get some cool additional content from your boys on a monthly basis, or probably more frequently than that. So,
yeah, I mean,
that part will be fun.
Do you hate Brian? Do you hate when he's champ? Kick him when he's down. Subscribe to our Patreon. Yep.
Again, this is not worth it for me. All right. Okay, enough about all that. What about beer, Steve? Are you familiar with this concept of beer? Do you got one in front of you?
I am familiar, and I am drinking a beer.
What do you have? Tell me about it.
For the first time in I don't know how many weeks on this show, I'm drinking a legitimate beer.
Oh, no shit. Not a Gloop Glop. Not a fucking Steel Reserve.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how many weeks it's been since, but I am drinking a real beer this time. It's
an actual beer.
Yes. It's coming from Cinderlands.
Okay.
Yes. And it's their Gato Montes, which is a Mexican-style dark lager. So basically their take on Modelo Negro.
Yeah. Yep. Very nice. Yep. Love that style. I wish, because we're seeing all these Czech dark lagers now, which I fucking love a Czech dark lager. You certainly see a Schwartz beer from time to time. I want to see more Mexican dark lagers, right? Just real crispy, dry sense of bitchin' dark lagers. I love a Czech dark lager, but they either go in one direction or the other. Either they're pretty aggressively bitter, which is great. I like that. Or they got some chew to them. They got some heft. They're a little less attenuated than your average dark lager, or every average lager in general. Just the Czech style of fermenting their beer. But a Mexican dark lager, ooh, that's a good dry son of a bitch. So this one, I like a dark beer year round.
Yeah, so this one isn't that dry.
Okay, interesting.
It's pretty. I mean, it does remind me of Modelo Negro, but it's pretty like there's a good amount of like caramel flavor to it.
Okay.
I mean, it's not overly bitter. It's easy drinking, but it just feels like you're drinking brown. If that makes sense.
Drinking that brown.
Drinking brown.
If it's brown, drink it down. That's what I always say. Well, good. I have to give that a try. Did you get that at the old Creekside?
Yep, got that at the old Creekside. It's really good. Otherwise, like I said, it's not a really bitter. You don't get too much hop character on it, and it's just it tastes like a really upscaled Modelo Negro. It's really good.
I need to get down there. There's a few beers down there I gotta try for myself. All right. I got no surprises here. Not a beer I've had on the show before, but just the style that I do frequently try, which is dark. Actually, I don't know if they call this a Helles beer, actually, but this is from Pennsylvania's own Trogs Independent Brewing. A fantastic beer, but perhaps the laziest name I've ever seen in my life, and logo for that matter. It's called Summer's Here Lager. Mm-hmm. And it's in their variety pack, their summer variety pack. It's a heck of a nice beer. It's basically kind of a hoppy American lager. It's not, I wouldn't even call it, it's almost an American take on a Helles, I would say a little bit, or even a Pilsner, although the IBUs are really low. It's really not very bitter at all, but it's 4.2%. So very much in the American lager, American light lager vein. But the malt is Pilsner malt, which you definitely taste Pilsner malt. Mm-hmm. So it's not just your standard, kind of American 2-row. But then it has flaked rice as well, which is going to obviously thin it out, dry it out. And then it's dry hopped with Saaz and Citra.
Huh.
So a really unique combination in that way. And they said that Croy's in it. It's got a little bit of ester component to it. Here, let me see if you can hear what that damn thing smells like. Pasha. It's fairly
I got it.
Yeah, you got it. Got a little whiff of that.
Got it.
It's not aggressively hopped, but it's expressive because it's got Citra, but then it also does have a little bit of that like herbaceous or even bergamot orange type of thing going.
It sounds kind of like they're doing Italian Pilsner but American.
Yeah, it's a really unique lager, but it really comes together super well. It just drinks like a super light, really crisp, dry, Pilsner malt forward, kind of hoppy lager, but not like aggressively. So it's really low bitterness. It's a freaking beautiful beer. I would drink an absolute hell out of it, but boy, howdy, that name and logo is just kind of fucking lackluster.
Trogs absolutely fucking coasts when it comes to logos and
I know they do. Like, that's not their bag. I get it. But this one just seems like particularly lazy. But it doesn't matter because the beer's fucking great. So fuck off. Who cares? It could just be a fucking plain can. But still, like, it's like some stuff they do is really good. And then other stuff, you're like, you really mailed that one in, didn't you?
Yeah.
That one in, but
they're like one step above Helltown, which Helltown just puts everything in the same black can and they go, I don't know, you figure it out.
Right. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter that much, obviously, but for a pretty big brewery. But yeah, heck of a nice beer. I would love if Trogs just did a pack with their lagers, and they just did this beer. They put Sunshine Pills, which is a fucking all-time great, Troganator, and then, I don't know, throw the fucking Helles back in there. That Helles that they put in the variety pack a while back was gorgeous. Throw all that shit in there. Keep the Perpetual out of there. I don't mind that beer, but they have one called like Haze Gem that's in that pack. Yeah. It's no good. It's kind of a stinker. Yeah, it's just do the lagers, man. Do the lagers. But I know Perpetual is like their I think at this point it's pretty much like their flagship, but
yeah.
Anyway, I mean, all their beer's good. Don't get me wrong. It's just neither of those excite me too much, but man, I wish I could just get more of just them dang old loggy beers.
I'll start a change.org petition and send it to them for September.
Yeah. Trogs, don't change your back on the lagers. Don't turn your back on the lagers. I mean, that's the fucking bread and butter here, guys. Anyway, what the fuck do I know? All right, let's get into these fucking old movies here. So this is pretty interesting. I'll reiterate kind of, what, and Steve, Steve, why don't you, because this was your idea. And I think this was kind of a fun exercise. What made you think of doing this?
So we're talking about the 2023 movie Malum, but also The Last Shift, which came out in 2014. And I remember, like, I'd seen 2014 Last Shift about the time it came out.
Mhm.
Like it was, because I don't believe it got a big theater run or anything. It's a very small movie, and you can kind of tell that looking at it.
Mhm.
But I believe it came out originally on Amazon Prime, and I watched it. And preparing for this episode, I went back and watched it again, and like Amazon Prime had like my space saved. Of like,
Oh,
it
really?
was like, it's been years since I watched it, but Amazon Prime's like, well, you can continue with the credits or go back. And I was like, I'll start again. But
Yeah, let me clean up this credits real quick.
Yeah. But I guess, over 2020, 2021, the director, Anthony Diblasi, and his partner, Scott Poyley, they both wrote the original Last Shift. And then they decided to come back and make Malum. And Malum is pretty much a remake of the original.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more added to it and everything. And like, I looked into why they wanted to do it. And they said, De Blasi said, we're proud of the Last Shift, but it was made on such a small budget and there's just things we couldn't do.
Right.
So they got the funding to come back and do it again. And I was like, okay.
I kind of, the more I thought that was such a weird thing to do, but the more I thought about it, I think the alternate, if you really think you have a fantastic movie that you feel like you could have done more with, the more, the path, more, I guess, well tread would be to just do a sequel. Right.
Right.
And then just kind of, take some of the same elements and punch them up. But instead of doing a sequel, they were like, no, we want to dive deeper into this universe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to tell a different story. We just want to tell this story in a different way.
Right.
So I thought it was pretty interesting. I actually really like the idea of doing that rather than like forcing a sequel that no one wants, or tells a different story that you don't want to tell.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, it's not that no one. Well, yeah, no, because I wouldn't even want a sequel to The Last Shift. So like, there's a lot of things that are up against making a sequel. So,
well, what are you going to call it? Like, if you're going to do a sequel, not a prequel, it's like this is The Last Shift. Like, what are you going to call it? Last Shift again?
No, you call it First Shift, and it's the devil taking the job.
Yeah, I guess so. You have to do a prequel, right?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, if you know how The Last Shift ends, yeah, there's no sequel there, and it's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, that film is a wonderful small indie film that's like self-contained, and it's a fun little haunt, basically haunted house film. It's great.
Yeah, and I was looking up Anthony Diblasi a little bit more about him, because I didn't recognize his name sounded familiar, but I didn't immediately associate him with any projects. But he worked on a lot of things. He worked on Midnight Meat Train. He was part of Clive Barker's production studio, Midnight Picture Show, and was like heavily involved with that. And then the movie I watched not that long ago from him was Extremity.
Okay.
That I watched, I think soon after it came. Actually, you know what? I think I watched it over COVID. So it might have been, a little bit after it came out, but it's from 2018. That was basically a, slashery type of movie based on, the whole idea of like, the super hardcore haunts.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was fun. It was a fun movie. I don't remember a ton about it. I think, and I might be confusing this with another one. I think we get a Tom Atkins in that movie, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and look. I don't know if I'm confusing it with another movie, but I remember I remember liking it.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
maybe I'm getting it mixed up with somebody else, or maybe I'm getting it mixed up with another movie. But I definitely watched it. I remember the kind of mask that's associated with it. But
yeah, I'm not seeing a Tom Atkins in here.
I might be confusing it with another movie that has a similar name.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about like what the plot line is about it being about like those extreme haunted houses that like
I wasn't completely forgetting. No. I'm not completely confusing it. I'm just interjecting Tom Atkins in a movie that he wasn't in.
Right, which I
want to do.
That could be any movie.
Yeah,
it's okay to put him anywhere. It's fine. So De Blasi and his partner, they go on after Extremity though, and this is their next film after Malum is, and it's the kind of the high level of this is that you start the film with a female police officer who has a history with the police, and she's starting a last shift at a soon-to-be decommissioned police station. And she's basically just left alone, and what should be like kind of an easy overnight job turns into like a terrifying experience because it's full of damn ghosts.
Yeah.
And goblins.
It's
and the devil.
Haunted. Yeah, devil, goblins, just a bunch of spook 'em ups.
Yeah.
Just a whole dang house full of spook 'em ups.
Yeah. And so,
oh, I just remembered the name of the movie. It's called Trick, that Tom Atkins was in, but the cover looks very similar. That's why I confused them, I think. Because the killer, the guy. Anyway, I won't get into it. But yeah,
check out Trick, starring Tom Atkins.
Check out Trick. It's not that great.
So Malum departs from Last Shift like almost immediately when it starts, and this is like the first thing that like stuck out to me pretty big is that like. Last Shift is so self-contained and small, is like you basically just follow this rookie cop, Jessica Lauren. It's the same name for both movies.
Yep.
But I like the way Last Shift starts with basically nothing. It's just her on the phone with her mom, then going to work, and then work is bad. You know,
yes.
And it's so like and everything gets filled in along the way for her. Malum starts with like a full-on flashback sequence.
Yeah, like a found footagey type of flashback kind of thing.
Yeah, and so both films revolve around this cult, and it's like the cult of the low god or worshippers of Malum, and they're they're a Charlie Manson ripoff essentially. But like, what if Charlie Manson actually did conjure the devil?
Pretty much exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's interesting because the second movie, and this is kind of a theme overall, I think we'll kind of talk about, is like the first movie almost leaves you to your own devices too much in certain points, where it leaves some plot points like kind of on the table, maybe unexplained, and then you can speculate about them. But I definitely found myself overall, after watching Malum, I've never seen either of these movies, and I watched them, consecutive days. And I really liked Last Shift. And then I liked it even more after watching Malum, because I feel like it explained things that like maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention to get in the first movie. The second movie as a standalone definitely kind of, I don't know if it's fair to say spoon feeds you more things, but yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Whereas the first movie, it leaves you to your own devices, and there are things you may or may not really pick up on depending on how, closely you're watching it.
Yeah. I feel like somewhere in between the two films, there's like a perfect movie.
I know. That's what I felt like Malum went. The first movie, I did find myself going, I wish they would have explained that a little bit more. Like the kind of I guess I'll use an example, because we're not really going to go through the whole plot of both of these movies, obviously, and they have the same plot, although they, like you said, they do diverge in a couple of instances. But there is something that happens early in the movie when she's left alone in the precinct by herself, and this seemingly homeless guy comes up to the precinct, kind of comes in, and in the first movie he doesn't say anything, so it becomes very difficult. He's almost acts like he's mute or something like that. He doesn't speak, and it's very hard to discern where he comes from and why he's there. And I didn't really pick up on why he was there. I knew he was trying to find something out because he was searching through archives and stuff like that. And then the second movie, this same character who's like looks very different, but he's kind of the same type of character. He comes in and is like, "Where's my daughter? I'm looking for my daughter. She got killed by the guy." You know what I mean? Like he's just tells you exactly why he's there from the beginning. And to your point, There probably could have landed somewhere in the middle.
Right.
It would have made more sense. It would have been more enjoyable, but yeah.
Yeah. Like the first movie, it almost gets a little confusing because at some points you think this homeless character we're talking about is also the cult leader, because they do some juxtaposition between those two as well. So that gets it's a little muddy in the first film, but it beats you over the head in this film that, you know, he's the father of he's the father of one of the women who was a victim of the cult.
Right.
So like, yeah, there's a happy medium in there somewhere. But yeah. But, and so back to like the beginning of Malum, like we said, last shift just starts with Lauren in her, Officer Lauren in her car, and then she goes right to work. Beginning of Malum has this big flashback to Officer Lauren's father, and like he does a massacre at the police station. That's no good. And you get you get all the found footage of the cult and like how they're like bashing women's brains in and feeding them to pigs.
Yeah.
And then we're following Officer Lauren on her drive to work after she meets her drunk mom at the cemetery. And, you know, there's like chaos in the streets and they're like throwing dead pig heads at the cars and everything. And immediately I was just like, this is all too much.
It does. It's the first movie is such an isolated and like extremely personal thing with Jessica, and the second movie is it's a much bigger thing that encompasses the whole town. And I see why they wanted to do that, because it helps it makes certain things make more sense, but there is just I don't know. There's a lot of elements that just take away from the subtlety of the first movie, you know? Yeah. Take away from the subtlety, and it even ruins one of the best, one of the kind of best scares or reveals from the first film. And we'll get to it in a bit after we get Lauren in her job. But all of this, like, all this table setting is what it is at the beginning of the film. It's just too much, because last shift didn't need it. So I don't know why we need it again. Yeah, it's one of those instances where you got a bigger budget and so you had to use it, but it didn't necessarily benefit the movie, except for maybe in a couple of spots, you know? Yeah. I will say though, like, just visually, you can tell they have a bigger budget this time. Oh, 100%. Because like anything that's shot outside in the last shift is, it looks like it was post-processed up exposure a little bit, because, you know, they obviously can't light an entire street. So they just got to take what natural light they have out there. And like, you know, maybe if they had a couple 5Ks or 10Ks, they could, you know, light the area the actors were in. But otherwise it's like, we have no lighting for this. You know, so all the outside stuff doesn't look great in the last shift, but it looks fine inside, because that's, you know, you can control that. Right. And it is a very claustrophobic setting. I mean, in both movies, right? But especially in Last Shift, much more of it happens in the corridors of this station, whereas in the second movie, there's a lot more happening in like more open rooms. Yeah. They have more space to work with and everything, and but like that's the thing, is like it looks better because they have money for both better cameras and better production design. So like I feel like this film, or Malum, I gotta make sure I say which film, but I feel I feel like Malum does a better job at capturing kind of the almost Silent Hill aesthetic. It does. It feels like the whole thing is just is creepy. It feels like you're in this creepy. It just builds the world a little bit more, whereas the whole thing in Third Shift feels like a dream. Like you're just in one big dream. Yeah, because I maybe I prefer. I don't know, but it's hard to tell which I would prefer. Like I guess I would have to see like Last Shift occur in this setting. You know what I'm saying? Like just do that movie exactly shot for shot, but put it in this. I think it's a Kentucky police station that was actually being decommissioned that they shot Malum in. Yeah,
so
I can see that.
Yeah. Whereas like I think the last shift looks like it's kind of shot somewhere it's kind of sterile and is like maybe even in use as like office space.
I was going to say it doesn't feel like necessarily a police station, although I guess it is supposed to be about to be decommissioned, but
right.
It doesn't necessarily feel like a police station like the other one does.
Yeah. So, but once Officer Lauren arrives, and this is one of the scenes that both films share, they're confronted by the sergeant that's on duty, Sergeant Grip.
Yeah, Grip Cohen. What a name.
Yeah. I don't know how you come up with that name, but it kind of rules.
Yeah.
Grip Cohen. And it's a good setup for like your first hints that something's weird, because you're introduced to Grip just losing his grip.
Yeah. Yeah, he's real. He's just kicking a basketball around, just having a big old temper tantrum.
Yeah, he's throwing a temper tantrum. He's screaming. He's saying, fuck, you don't know who he's yelling at. And then he comes out and like he sees Officer Lauren has been watching him. And like, this is like the first time I got kind of let down by Malum. Is the actor playing Cohen in Malum is so much worse than the one in The Last Shift.
It's interesting because I felt like that was the case more than it wasn't. For a movie that has, undoubtedly a much bigger budget, most of the performances, I mean, not that there's a lot of characters, but I like the performances of almost everyone more in Last Shift.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, definitely Jessica, the main character. I don't know if you agree with this, but in the first movie, I'm not saying it was perfect, but I think she did a pretty nice job in the first movie. But in Malum, I thought the performance was so flat by the actress who played Jessica.
Yeah, I thought
especially when shit hit the fan, it's just like she was almost not even responding.
Yeah,
at times.
Yeah, when shit hits the fan, it gets a little weird, and I think that's also kind of the nice thing it's kind of the thing about The Last Shift. Jessica isn't necessarily responding to everything that happens in The Last Shift, because there's a lot of things that happen behind her or in her periphery that she wouldn't see. It's just there to scare us as an audience, because we see like a hanged body fall behind her. She doesn't see it, so she doesn't have to react to it. We just react to, oh no, she's in danger. Whereas a lot more happens to the Jessica of Malum, and she has to react to it, and maybe there isn't always something there for her to react to either.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think that speaks to the larger issue with these two movies, or with Malum, is in Last Shift there is a lot of like, it's almost a mystery. There's a bit of a whodunit type of element to it. It's obviously supernatural horror and all this stuff, but there is a mystery being solved that Jessica is not entirely aware exists. Like, she's not there to solve a mystery. You as the viewer are kind of piecing together a bit of what she already knows versus what's happening and how they connect. And then things are undercover, being uncovered as you go. Even, the one element of the calls that are coming in, like you think it's a victim and all this stuff. In Malum, there really is no mystery. Like, she's there to find out about her dad. She's shooting locks off of lockers in the first 5 minutes, whereas in Last Shift, like, she's eating a sandwich kind of timidly by herself, So it's like the Jessica and Malum is just there to fuck shit up. She pretty much she already has a lot of information coming in, and then like even the mystery around the phone calls, like it's just her being terrorized more than it is her and the audience coming to realizations together.
Right. Yeah, because the phone calls in Malum are the actual cult members that are left over calling to terrorize her, and then she calls like the police, the real police station, the one that's up and running, and they're like, well, we can't do anything about that because they're all over the town, so just lock up and be safe. Whereas in Last Shift, it's much more like you're saying, it's a mystery, because she's getting calls when she shouldn't get calls, and then she's trying to get the other station to like look into it and figure out what's going on, because she has nothing to look into it.
Yeah, it's like a supernatural mystery, whereas Malum is like a Attack of the Killer Cult movie.
Yeah. It's almost Assault on Precinct 13, but you never see outside the precinct.
Yeah, rarely, right? Except for her drive into work, basically.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there are quite a few scenes that are absolutely shot for shot exactly the same, like when she's introduced to Cohen, you know, and and quite a few other ones, right? But
and the a lot of them try to be shot for shot, or they're very close, and then some of them just fall apart. And I think one of the ones that really falls apart, but is also really great in Last Shift, is when she first arrests the homeless man for peeing in the lobby, or in Last Shift's case, she actually doesn't arrest him until he shows up in like an evidence room and is like bopping around. They have like a fight on top of shelves, which is kind of funny.
They do. Well, and the same thing with Malum, because he doesn't even come in the first time in Malum. He just pees and it leaks under the door,
right?
And then he busts his ass in later. But yeah, she eventually arrests them in both instances, and then she gets basically by a ghost locked into like the holding cell area, basically.
Right. And this in the Last Shift, it's so much better because she's in the holding cell with the homeless man, and she only has a flashlight, and like all the lights go out because it's spooky time. It's time to get down to some spookums.
Yeah.
And the sound design is fantastic in the Last Shift because they make it binaural, and you can hear the homeless man in one ear and she's in the other ear. And she like at one point drops her flashlight and you hear the flashlight roll between the speakers. And then like you get this great reveal of the flashlight turns on and is shining in her face, and she's like yelling to get the flashlight back. And then the flashlight pans over and shows that the homeless man is in the corner. So it's a third somebody holding that flashlight. And then she freaks the fuck out.
Right. Yeah, it's really effective in the first scene or the first movie. And the second movie, maybe it's because you see it coming. I don't know. But it is not. Yeah, it's just not as effective. Yeah,
I mean, in Malum, like there wasn't any of that sound design. And also when the lights go out, they don't fully go out in Malum. Like you still see like outlines of Jessica and everything. It's way more effective when it's pitch black
you don't get that
Shift.
Exactly. Yeah. They it's like they tried to do a lot of punching up that didn't really add to it. Even like the hooker scene, you know, where you meet like Marigold or whatever, the hooker. In the first movie, and I think it's the same actress too, isn't it?
It's the same actress because she's also Diblasi's wife.
Oh, okay. Yeah. In the first movie, she's just kind of a hooker with a heart of gold kind of thing, you know, outside smoking a cig, and she gives her a little bit of information, but it doesn't feel like an exposition dump. It's just like, hey, I'm a nosy, and you know, I'm here to, you know, just give you some information. In the second movie, she's like a vigilante hooker. Like, none of that needed to be there. And she's also seeing shit too. And then like, was she part of the cult or was she possessed? Like, I don't know. It's just like, none of that had to be there.
Yeah.
You know, she could have just given you a little bit more of a hint to what's happening.
Yeah. In the Last Shift, it works as kind of a nice like tension breaker scene, but also it does reveal like a big important part that the cult members weren't killed at the farm. They hung themselves in the holding cells.
Right.
In Malum, that would work better, except we've already seen that Officer Lauren went on a rampage in the police station.
Right.
So we know like a bunch of people have been killed there anyway. What does it matter if the cult members were shot on the farm or hung there? There's already something terrible that's happened at this location.
Something already happened. We know that much. Yeah.
So like it doesn't add or subtract anything to find that out. But in Last Shift, it adds because you go, oh, we didn't know this was a damn spook 'em up haunted house.
Mm-hmm.
There's like spooks
yeah, we didn't
here.
know none of that.
There's ghosts here.
There's,
oh shit.
There's full on spookums. The one thing I will give Malum is that it does have a demonic thumb drive. It's like, come on, guys. Like the way that, and it sounds kind of cheap, but it's not. It's executed well. In the first movie, in Last Shift, a lot of what Jessica's seeing is kind of visions that are being like kind of thrust on her by the haunted environment or the ghosts involved or whatever. So much so that there are instances, especially near the end, where it's almost like she's watching like a projector on the wall. Like the ghosts, it's almost like one of those, and maybe it's a little tropey for a supernatural movie, but this idea of like, ghosts showing you what happened so you can rectify it in some capacity, or perhaps you could be a victim of it again if they're naughty bad ghosts. But like in this instance, in Malum, it's like, nah, here's a thumb drive that has everything on it. Like, you now watch it. You know what I mean? I just
click around on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, in the Last Shift, like they have interviews with the cult members playing on TVs, and like the ghosts just turn the TVs on, and Jessica's like, oh, scared, but information.
Yeah.
Right. But information. In this one, they're just like, here, watch this. Here.
Yeah, here you go.
Here.
Yeah. It's just kind of speaks to the same like overall issue is just like they just kind of the second time around try to overcomplicate things a little bit more than they needed to. Yeah, I don't know. That just felt like something I kept thinking to myself as I was going through this. I think also like the performances in the second one feel a lot more like cartoonish, and not just Jessica and her mom, which now it's also like there's this whole backstory of like she's tied in and her dad's tied in and her mom was part of the cult, and like none of that stuff really is the case in the first movie.
No.
Like you could maybe hint at the fact that her father had some sort of like involvement or something like that, but otherwise it just felt like a wrong place, wrong time type situation for her. In this movie, they basically did the whole, Halloween 2, where now Jamie, Laurie is Michael's sister. They had to do this whole backstory of like, oh, Jessica was, baptized by the cult and she was destined for all this to happen. And we just didn't really need any of that, I don't think.
No, I don't think it adds, like, it doesn't add.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they probably put it in as a justification for her like being chosen by Malum, but I don't know that you need that to get chosen by the demon.
Wrong place, wrong time. Yeah,
it could just be that because she's the daughter of the cop who took them down in the first place.
Yep.
Now that's their revenge. Because I mean, you even get kind of a scene between the cult leader and Officer Lauren, Jessica's father. You get a scene between them in the interview room where like he's basically like, okay, well now I'm going to take everything from you.
Yeah.
And that's all you need. You don't need the anointing or anything. You just have the cult leader say, I'm going to take everything from you. And then that's it's
revenge.
Yeah, it's a revenge.
That's all. Yeah, and the what did you think about the cult itself, and particularly, so the main guy's John, right? So it's John in the first movie. It's in the second movie it's John Malum, so it's named after him. In the first movie it's John Michael something.
It's John Michael Payman. So it's kind of like it's also like another demon name because there's the Payman demon that from Hereditary people would remember.
Right. So he. In the first movie, it's very Manson-y, especially it's almost like a Manson-y with a little touch of Rob Zombie. You know what I mean? Like they're real greasy, real grimy. Yeah. Where in the second movie, he almost reminds me a little bit of a cross between Manson, but like a little bit like the cult leader from Mandy. Like he's a little bit more like well kempt and he's a little bit more like vapid or something like that. Like he's got like kind of fancy clothes on,
right.
Not like fancy, but he's got, he's a little more stylish.
Yeah.
But the whole thing between them, the mom, they all felt way more like cartoonish in the second one, which if you saw in the first one, you'd be like, oh, they're like a bunch of like greasy haired, like, mountain hippies or whatever. That seems more cartoonish, but it's actually the inverse. Like the performances really make it feel the opposite.
Yeah. They definitely feel more crust and gutter punk cult in the first one, whereas this one feels like hipster cult. Because they're, they're nice and well dressed. They have their song, and like he has like his big furry collar that it's just like, eh.
Let me ask you this. This bothered me, and I might have missed it here. There were like three things that really stuck out with me. So the first one was and this is more just like, I don't know if it felt lazy or I was like, why did this need to be the case? But the whole idea of tying in Jessica as having been baptized by John when she was a kid, and John, and her name's Diane, who's Jessica's mother, had a relationship with John as she was in the cult and all this stuff. So then you're like, okay, so now time has to have passed, right? Why? But then John is, of course, the same age. So I'm like, what happened with the time frame here? But then the mom just explains it away by going, John found us after all this, and he hadn't aged a day.
Yeah.
Did you? It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I understand that you had to explain that away, and you're trying to suggest that there's something supernatural going on with him, that he's not aging. But like, I don't know. It just felt kind of scotch taped together a little bit, because like in that flashback, the woman who's playing Jessica's mother is a younger actress, so they have a young version of her mom, and then there's her mom who's like an older lady, but then the guy who plays Jessica's dad, it does not feel as old as he should be, because I think he's basically the same actor all the way through, but also he doesn't feel old enough to be that old. No, he looks like actor old. You know what I mean? Where like he is probably well into his 50s, but he's an actor and he like dyes his hair and whitens his teeth and gets Botox and all that stuff. The other thing that bothered me about this, when the mom came, because the doors were chained up. Remember they locked her in?
Yeah.
But then when the mom comes, the chains are on the ground.
Yeah.
And they actually not zoom in on them, but they actually like pan the camera to the chains on the ground.
Well, yeah, they do a close up of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what are we meant to think, that they removed the chains to let the mom in?
I inferred originally that she let herself in and that like she was still part of the cult.
Okay.
That's why I inferred, but that's not how it ended. So it just,
it's not how it. Yeah, that bothered me. And then the other thing was they tried to explain it away earlier, which I'm confused by why it had to come back later. Which whenever Jessica in Malum, like I said, she goes 0 to 60. She's shooting locks off shit. She's in there just having fucking crazy hallucinations 5 seconds into the fucking movie, whereas you really build to that in Last Shift. And then she calls the cop, the chief or whatever, the sergeant, I don't know, calls him at home and is like, hey, what's up? I'm seeing shit out here. She doesn't even really try to, like, she just breaks down pretty quick. And she's like, I can't do this. This sucks. I'm seeing things. And she's like, he's like, don't go. Did you go in the holding cells? And he's like, yeah. And of course we know like the holding cells, like where they killed themselves. That's like a very, apparently the most haunted place. And he's like, don't go back in there. There's black mold everywhere. And then so like, okay, whatever, you explain that away. But then later on, they go as far as to make like CGI black mold on the walls.
Yeah.
And the black mold is maybe symbolic of the haunting. And I don't know. It just never comes together.
I think, and when I was reading interviews about like why they made Malum, one of the interviews they're mentioning, Diblasi mentioned like there was black mold in that police station. And I feel like maybe it was just like a quick inspirational thing that they're like, oh, we should incorporate that because black mold makes you crazy. You know, it wasn't maybe not a thing that like they thought through, and it's just a thing they saw on set and were like, oh, wait, what if?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it just feels out of place. Like it never circles back around. Like if it was there to cast doubt, like it would have made more sense in the first movie, because then you're like, is Jessica crazy? Is she not actually seeing this stuff? You don't know. And then ultimately that's what you come to kind of question, is ultimately Jessica was we're jumping towards the end here and we're obviously spoiling this, but ultimately Jessica was kind of a unreliable narrator ? Or she was overcome by the ghost or whatever, and she ultimately ended up basically killing innocent people, right? Thinking she was doing something right. So that it would have made sense in that context, but that really never happens in Malum. Like that scene carries out where she's chasing the cult people through and just blasting them.
Yeah,
and,
she's
doing that whole scene. But they are the actual cult people.
Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing, is that gets so muddy towards the end, where they decide to have the actual cult break into the police station, and they have the 3 victims who didn't die from the original original crimes on the farm. They have those 3 victims, and they're going to kill them as sacrifice in the police station now on the anniversary. But it gets so muddy and confused because you've seen so many unreliable things at this point that it's hard to know like who's real and who isn't. And you have Jessica blasting, and you have these women we're supposed to feel something for, but they're just dying on camera, and it doesn't totally matter.
Yeah, like the one that gets her like throat cut when she's like laying in the hallway, and like why, like that was pretty unceremonious. And then, they're trying to mimic, I think, some of because the first movie had some really great, surprising. I mean, yes, they were jump scares, but they were more like you didn't expect what was going to happen kind of thing. Like when the little, like when the meet cute happens between her and like the flirty cop.
Oh, that's such a perfect scene.
In the first one, it's so great. And when he turns around and it's fucking Sixth Sense shit and his head's blown apart in the back. Yeah. You did not see it coming.
No, it's like, I wanted to focus on this scene a little bit because it's so perfect in The Last Shift. Yeah. And it's so wrong in Malum.
It's horrible in Malum. You got the fucking Keystone Cops, first of all, making jokes and shit, like cartoonish as hell. Yeah. But go ahead. That was that was one of a handful of really great scenes in the first movie.
Yeah. So I think it's about midway through Last Shift. But, Jessica has been seeing things. She's been, getting these scary calls. And then just another cop shows up. I believe it's Officer Price. And they have like a little meet cute. It's a real disarming, tension solving scene, because like they're just having a little flirt, they're having a talk, it's nice, and there's nothing wrong, nothing spooky's happening. And then the end of the scene, he just turns around to walk out and leave, and the back of his head is blown off, and it's like, what the fuck?
And then he just gingerly, and it's not like now I'm gonna scream at the camera or my head's gonna shake or something. He just turns around and gingerly walks out, and it just walks out, and you see him walk past the window as he's exiting, and she's like, what the fuck? And she's so stunned it takes a minute for her to like go after him, and by that point he's gone.
He just disappears around a corner, and it's like, fuck, ghosts, bad ghosts.
Goddamn.
In Malum,
flirty ghosts.
It's handled so poorly because one, we get a scene at the beginning of the film, in the massacre scene, we already see this Officer Price.
Yeah.
We already see him. So now kind of tension is already heightened when he shows up again.
Yes.
Because we know he was at the scene of the massacre and we know he has history with her father. So already you're already on high alert as an audience member, perhaps more so than Jessica.
Yep.
Then it's just the way the scene plays out, like because it's two cops in this case. It's Officer Price and then Officer Fat Cop. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like just Officer Punching Bag is all this guy character was.
Yeah, he's just being real mean to him. Like it's like he doesn't really add anything at all.
No. Just
I think they thought they were gonna disarm things with humor, maybe. I don't know, but it didn't work at all.
It didn't work because it was mean. Like he's just being like straight up mean to him. So it's not disarming. It's just like, oh, here's a fucking bully cop who was at the scene of a massacre. Wonder if I can trust this guy or not.
Yeah. Right.
But then like he takes her to a locker room and shows her the shotgun that, her dad killed everybody with. And then he ducks behind the shotgun or ducks behind a locker and then pops back out with fucking blasted apart face. And it's just like,
yeah. It just, it was so much less effective than the first one. They just, they went for broke on a lot of these, and the first movie, the practical effects were really well done and very kind of judiciously. And then when they went full bore, they were really great. This movie, they really threw a lot at the wall with the practical effects, like the face thing there, which, obviously was a lot more difficult to do than the one in the first movie. There's two scenes in this movie, practical effects wise, and I'm like, why did you go that hard? It doesn't make any sense. One is when the, woman who, in the first movie, the one woman who's like kind of crawling on the ground, like kind of chasing her, you get a look at her face and, she's got the blood and the thing over her head or whatever. In the second movie, she's got like her face. It's the girl who got her face smashed with the baseball bat, but it looks more like the fucking monster from Stranger Things or something. Yeah. Like it just really is bad looking. It looks like the monster from Stranger Things if it existed in the Beetlejuice universe. Like it looks bad. It takes you out of it. And then the second part where I was just like, why do this, was when there is another character. I think she was one of the victims. I know that gets hung. Yeah, she was one of the victims. Yeah, and Jessica runs in and tries to save her, but then the rope is tightening around her neck, and then she's got her hand between there, and it like pops her fingers off. But then it like squeezes her head until her eyeballs pop out, and then her head literally pops off. Yeah, and it just was so over the top cartoonish, and it just felt like it was from another, like a totally different movie.
I mean, at that point, I don't feel like it felt like it from another different movie because everything else was so cartoonish and silly.
I guess so. It's just for eyeballs to pop out and a head to pop off. Just feels like it's just another step further than it needed to go.
I mean, it was definitely the most extreme thing that had happened to that point, which is why it was so unsettling.
Yeah, from there, everything else, it does go to shit. Like pretty soon thereafter, you get, people, cops as dogs with intestine lesions and shit, so you get that going here in a second.
Yeah, but I mean, it really goes fucking batty goofiness. And like,
yeah, it does.
I don't dislike that.
No, that's my favorite part of this movie was the last. I mean, I'm not saying it delivered 100%, but like the last 20 minutes were probably my favorite.
Yeah, it just like once they take the governor off, it's like, okay, it's like the brake breaks on the minecart ride, and so the minecart is just out of control now. It's like, yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to jump back to the last shift quickly about the judicious use of practical effects. When Officer Price is reintroduced at the end of the last shift, and he just puts his fingers in his mouth like a gun, and then blows his brains out again. Like that was, again, that's really effective, and there's not a lot going on.
You didn't see it coming either.
Yeah.
You didn't see it coming. And then there's the scene, and I forget who it is, but like the corpse that's being dragged, almost a la Nightmare on Elm Street style.
Yeah.
Through the hall. And then it's like, it looks like the corpse is being picked up and then like made to walk, but it looks like somebody who's doing it is invisible almost. It's a really cool, effective scene, and done on, a small budget from a distance. So it's not like you're seeing that much, but it just was really effective. And I don't know. I just don't think there was anything in the second movie that was that effective.
Yeah. Like
until the crazy ass demon shows up, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Then the demon shows up and it's like, what the fuck is this? Like they really went for broke for that. Again, like we said at the top of the episode, like there's somewhere in between, there's a perfect film. And like where the last shift doesn't have a demon and this movie has all demon with a weird, funny, floaty face with like an effect.
Floaty face. It's like if Spawn was a Cenobite.
Yeah.
Like that's what it looks like.
Yeah. Like this.
And then it shoots its pentagram floaty face and it's bonkers.
And like that effect feels like it's from 2006. It's weird. But somewhere in the middle, there's a film that has the demon that just exists only in the shadows and you only see glimpses of it. And then like it hangs over John Michael Malum, like you see it behind him, but you never fully see it. It doesn't come up and kiss Jessica in a weird way.
Well, that was the best time you saw the demon, is when you saw it behind him, behind him in the window, and you're like, oh, fucking, what was that?
Right.
But then when you get a close up on its face for 10 hours, it's like it loses its luster a little bit.
And I mean, it's literally a Power Rangers villain.
It totally is. It's like a really gory Power Rangers villain. Like I said, it just looks like if Spawn was a Cenobite. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, you have to expect Psycho Goreman to come up and kick its ass.
Yeah. That is even better analogy. Yes, that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like it's from that movie. But yeah, the ending is a little bit confusing in both, but in the first movie it feels intentionally vague and left a little open-ended. Both movies end on a down note. But in the first movie, like I said, it seems like sparse, but intentionally so. In the second movie, it just like really explains things almost too much, where it's like you're really hearing everything that John is saying. It's like as something happens, then they snap back to John saying, here's the thing I said was going to happen. It's happening, and then, I don't know. It also spends a lot of time with John, like talking in the interrogation room, which I guess I didn't find that performance that intriguing.
No, that actor was not, where every other actor is cartoonish. Like the Grip Cohen in the Malum is just so over the top cartoon, fucking almost R. Lee Ermey like.
Yeah,
the guy playing John Michael Malum in Malum is just like flat. And it's like, you're the bad guy. Be bad.
Yeah. I don't know how much you want to talk about the end, or if there's any other kind of different elements that you wanted to talk about. The whole like toy. They tried to do too much. The toy thing that her dad made, that didn't really land, nor did we really care. That it just really felt like a non-issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it didn't tug at the heartstrings, didn't do anything. It's just like, oh, I get it. You mentioned that toy a little bit in one sentence earlier, and now it's here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it doesn't land. It's just over bloated. I did have one note in here about a line that bothered me from Malum. And it's, I even forget who it's between. It's between Jessica and I believe Officer Price. But it's, the line is, "That's what cops do. We hurt people."
What that was I'm trying to remember. That was her seeing an image of her father, I think.
Oh, okay. It was her dad.
And her father's like, "We hurt people. And if we need to, we kill people."
Yeah.
And it was just like, I think it was her, it was just a, ghost image of her dad saying things that was distressing, I guess. Right. I don't know.
But I mean, I had that written down, and then I have next to it in parentheses, "message."
Yeah. I don't know. It's so heavy-handed in everything it does.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when it's like, okay, so Jessica shoots herself, whatever. You saw that coming. Get the demon whispers in her ear, tells her to shoot herself. You do that. And then you get John, talking for a long time. Again, he loses it loses its edge when you're just hearing him do these like monologues. And then the last frame is Jessica at the queen throne at the right hand of John, Demon John, whatever. And then she just wakes up screaming. And it's just like the first movie, you feel like you're spiraling towards like something you don't quite grasp until the last couple scenes. Like this one's like the last couple of shots were like, we get it. She's beyond, like, she isn't coming back from this. You know what I mean? Like we saw her shoot herself, for God's sakes. Like we don't really care what happens after this.
Yeah. That was exactly my feeling as well. It's just like at some point it becomes like there's no coming back from this, and there's no more mystery either. That's the other, like the last shift has mystery almost up to the end. Of like, oh, you're unraveling things. Everything's unraveled at this point, and she's gone to the point where she's just shooting people in the hall. And it's just like, okay, well, there's a rampage, there's a demon, whatevs.
Yeah. Once demons show up, you're like, what the fuck? Who cares? I do really appreciate that Amazon Prime tried to play Frogs right after this.
Sick.
Like right after it was over, it was like, all right, ready to watch Frogs? I was like, oh, hell yeah. So do you want to hear my fan theory about this movie?
Sure.
All right. So, the Malum, the titular Malum is, his name's John, right? Jessica's mom's name is Diane.
Okay.
Jack is sometimes short for John. What I'm telling you, Steve, is this is a little ditty about Jack and Diane.
But who is the chili dog?
That's what I was going to say. There is not enough sucking on chili dogs. That's all I have to say.
I guess that's why all the pigs make chili dogs.
Oh, pigs is chili dogs.
Pigs make chili dogs.
That's what I always say. Pigs is chili dogs. Yeah. Overall, I mean, I much prefer Last Shift. If I could see myself watching that movie again, there's a little bit of like, mysteries revealed. So it's like, it wouldn't be obviously through the same lens. It would be more towards a like, hey, what did I miss kind of thing on the first one. Malum. Yeah. Unless, we did an episode about like big nasty demons, I don't envision watching that movie ever again.
Yeah. Last Shift works really well because it doesn't have a cold open. It just starts you off in the film, and it's a constant ramp up. Like it just goes up all the way to the end. Malum starts you off with a bunch of crazy shit with the cold open, and you're like, okay, and then you kind of calm down, but then it's constantly throwing things at you, and like it's
not paced nearly as well.
Yeah, and because we've mentioned so many things that wind up not mattering in the end. It's hard to pay attention to what does matter.
That's a good point.
It all gets mixed together, and it just feels like and then by that time you're like, demons, gunplay, who cares?
Yeah, bloated is the best way. I think you described the second movie, but you know what, it did ultimately make me appreciate the first movie a little bit more. So
yeah, but the second movie does look nice, and it does have big demon guy, so I mean, it has its pluses.
I'm not mad. I watched it. It's not like I disliked it. It's just I like the first movie a lot more.
Yeah,
I think
my suggestion is absolutely watch Malum first, but then go back to The Last Shift. I feel like it kind of jaded me watching The Last Shift first.
Yeah, you're probably right, but it made me like The Last Shift more. So I almost wonder how I'd feel because it's just more just a more scant movie. I wonder if it would detract from after you saw all this craziness in Malum. You might be expecting that and then be let down by no big demons or something. Maybe. Yeah, I'd be interested if I could go back in time and watch Malum first. I'd be interested to see how I feel about it in comparison. But yeah, it's they are for being essentially the same movie and the same director, they feel wildly different. They don't even feel like the same director.
No, not really.
But anyway, guys, that is Last Shift / Malum. Anthony Diblasi double feature here, guys. Definitely worth checking out both of those flicks. Streaming on the internets. Next week we'll give you a little bit of additional info about that August showdown. Once again, we're going to talk about good scenes and otherwise bad movies, which I'm really looking forward to. And we're going to tell you about our guest host for August. We're going to talk about what movies we're going to talk about. We're going to do a bunch of good old spooky shit next episode, as we always do on this here podcast. And once again, go follow us on those social medias. And if you feel so inclined to throw us a 5-star or 4-star, whatever the maximum number of stars is, a little review, write a little thing on the podcatcher of your choice, shoot us a DM and say, hey, I reviewed you on there. And I'll send you some damn old Halloween's Forever stickers in the mail. Perfect for the upcoming spooky season. You can do crimes with them. Put them on, people's windshields. You can
put them on cop cars.
Cop cars. Go over to Eaton Park. Slap them on the mirror in the bathroom. Do whatever you got to do. Just do crimes with them. All right. Anything else, Steve, that we're forgetting?
Nah, man. That's it. I'm going to go check out Extremity or maybe Trick with Tom Atkins.
Yes, I do both because I would be surprised if they are as close in my mind as they are.
Yeah.
Like in my brain, I'm thinking about them as essentially the same movie. Although I think Extremity, is the extreme haunt one. And then Trick, I believe, mostly happens like at Halloween. And it's like a serial killer around Halloween. But I think they have like similar kind of mask features. But
okay. I'll go double check Brian's work and see what's up.
Let me know how you feel about this. All right. For the Halloween's Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
All right. See you next time, you spooky bitches. Bye.
Bye.